Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our latest industrial podcast. A familiar face. Delighted to have with me National Officer Fiona Curtis as we discuss being Santander. Good, are you doing, Fiona? Good to have you back again.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's good to be back.
Yeah, and we've also got our Telecoms and Financial Executive member who leads on all things pertaining to Santander, Gordon Johnston. How are you doing, Gordon?
I'm good, thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you both with us. So obviously, it's a really serious issue. It's been a high-profile media one as well. We've seen lots of news articles about this, about Santander's decision to close 95 branches, twinning 36 and making another 18 counter-free right across the UK. Now, that's a big moment. It's been big news on high. It's been big news in the media. And obviously, we have a lot of members in Santander will be wondering how this potentially impacts them, both now in the short term, but also in the long term. And I guess, Fiona, if I can come to you really for a bit of an overview to kick off, but also to ask you, what was the level of what was the rationale from the company, and did they engage with the union on this issue from the start?
Thanks, Chris. I think it's important that this is a proposal from the bank at the moment. And the Santander UK, they did begin formal consultations with ourselves on the 5th of March. The rationale that the business explained to us was that more customers are now turning towards digital banking, which is what prompted the review of their branch structure. And they believe that this initiative of what they've come up with fits with their goal of becoming a digital first bank with a human touch. Now, the proposed closures, this is where it's really, really important with ourselves that it will directly impact all of the staff working in those affected branches, and is going to potentially put up to 749 colleagues at risk of redundancy.
I mean, that's quite serious, Gordon. I guess I want to try and bring you into the conversation as early as possible. I know you're quite close to the ground. You'll be speaking to lots and lots of colleagues. What's your thoughts on this proposal?
Thanks, Chris. Well, we strongly oppose the closure of the Santander UK branches, which we believe serve as vital fixtures on the high street and play a key role in supporting the local communities. These branches and their dedicated employees are essential to small businesses, community associations, and vulnerable members of society who rely on the services. We firmly believe that Santander UK should prioritise protecting its workforce and contributing to the strength of the local economy. We have shared the concerns, Chris, and made our representations to senior leadership within the bank in the relation to these closures. We're fully committed to doing everything we can to minimise job losses, and will continue to engage with our impacted members and the bank to hopefully get the desired outcomes for our members. We want all impacted staff who wish to remain employed with the bank to be given the appropriate retraining, reskilling, and redeployment opportunities where this is possible.
Thanks, Gordon. I think that's an excellent update and one that members will really welcome. I mean, Fiona, obviously you termed it and you said it's a proposal. What mean? I mean, is it in reality something that you believe we can impact, we can have a say in, or do you think the die cast and this is just part of a process that Santander are going through?
I think this is where the bank is providing all of the impacted staff a 2-week consultation period. And this is where it's really important as well, because it's an opportunity for yourselves to share the feedback, raise concerns, and also to explore what possible potential alternatives are out there. I suppose so. This is where we come into it as well, that we need to know that information of, right, what is it that you think that could be an alternative? Right, what could we put to the company then? Is there even this, we'll get into more of it later on around the job swaps, or even understanding some of the footfall in some of the branches, access to cash, all those things. It's really, really vitally important that this is where you have the opportunity to position that to the bank, and also that we can do those representations for you as well. And this is where any suggestions that you do have, please do raise this and escalate this through the CW Argus National branch.
Thank you, Fiona. Gordon, I mean, I guess what it comes down to is people thinking, how does this impact me? I mean, obviously they'll have a take on the wider update that yourself and Fiona are given. But if I work in a branch and it's scheduled to be closed, what does this mean to me? Will be one of the questions from the members out there.
Yeah, so Chris, from the 19th of March to the 1st of April, all our impacted colleagues will have the chance to participate in a confidential one-to-one discussion with their managers. These meetings will focus on how the proposed changes might affect them and provide a clear overview of what they expect in the weeks ahead. The proposed closure dates differ across branches, and it's influenced by various factors, including ensuring a local community has access to cash, such as through a banking hub, and the timing of when such services will become available. If any affected members are unable to secure redeployment due to a proposed branch closure, a notice of redundancy will be issued on the scheduled closure date of the branch. Pile-on, or pay in lieu of notice, will take effect from the following day, allowing members to be released from working their contractual notice period while receiving full payment for it instead. All branches and members affected by Santander UK's proposed closures will have been notified of the proposed plans Tuesday past there.
So thanks, Gordon. Some great information there once again for the members. Fiona, branch twinning, it was in the press release. Obviously, we've talked about it at the top of this podcast. What is branch twinning? And what would the impact of that be to members in those units?
Thanks, Chris. So branch twinning, this is a new concept for Santander UK. This is where a single team will manage the operations across 2 nearby branches. And then under this model, each branch will open on alternative days of the week. This is where the core purpose and the responsibilities of the current roles will remain unchanged. If the future twin role requirements are fewer, though, than the current roles, any reductions will be handled through a desktop selection process. If the roles, though, if there's requirements that exceed the current roles, colleagues will be automatically job matched with any unfilled roles being listed then as vacancies. This is where, though, where members, if they're within reasonable travel distance to the secondary branch, they will be considered as a job match, and they'll be included in a desktop selection process. Again, this is where it's really important to be in contact with your CWU, with your trade union, because then we can work through this with you to see, is it reasonable travel? Is there a job match? All those different things we can actually work with you along in this process. This is then where, though, that colleagues might decide then to be classified at risk of redundancy, then depending on some of that travel. But with this then as well, that we have sought assurances from the bank that no member will be required to change their current working patterns. And the bank has confirmed that it does not intend to alter these patterns and will make every effort to preserve the existing working arrangements throughout the process. On top of that as well, the terms and conditions remain the same, including the contractual Saturday working. That will remain unchanged too.
Thanks, Fiona. Loads of good information there from members. Gordon, another question that I wondered, and I wonder, a wider membership would be interested in, is what is meant by counter-free branches? What are they?
So thanks for that, Chris. What the bank have actually done is they piloted the implementation in 5 branches of counterless branches. So what that means is effectively they took the counter away and no cash transactions in the branch. Following that review, the bank are now proposing a format change for an additional 13 branches, which will involve the complete removal of counters in those branches. The proposed change does not have an impact on the size of the teams that are still operating within those branches, and it won't affect their accountabilities or responsibilities. As a result, there are no job security implications for members based in these branches.
Thanks, Gordon. I mean, one of the things, Fiona, you talked about, and Gordon's talked about, is there's going to be an opportunity in the coming days and weeks for our members to have one-to-one meetings on this issue. What are they like, and crucially, what should our members be discussing in those one-to-one meetings?
It's really important that we're encouraging our members to provide alternative solutions to the bank regarding the proposal at the moment. This is really vitally important. But on a personal level, in the one-to-one, it's important to clearly communicate what your preference is. So whether you wish to remain employed with Santander UK or you prefer to exit the bank through the redundancy. If your goal is to stay, then please do discuss this with your manager. Show that willingness to be retrained, reskilled, and there could be maybe a suitable alternative role in the bank, but that's then where you will maybe need that retraining, reskilling, and it'll be a different role maybe that you're compared to what you're doing now today. But this is where it's really important that if you do wish to stay employed with Santander UK, that you make that really clear in your one-to-one.
Thanks, Fiona. So, Gordon, going on the back of what Fiona said there, members will be wondering, are there genuine redeployment opportunities? So what do you believe opportunities there potentially could be for redeployment for our impacted members? And what are the union going to do to support members through that process?
Thanks, Chris. Well, firstly, Chris, we just want to reassure our members that we will continue to work closely with the bank to minimise job losses. To help preserve employment, the bank has introduced 95 new S1P4 customer experience roles, which will be available for redeployment. Additionally, there are BAU vacancies that will be offered to colleagues, providing further opportunities for redeployment. The bank have also undertaken some modelling to assess potential migration from closure branches to nearby branches. Where receiving branches are identified as needing additional resources due to the migration of customers, vacancies will be created at these locations and ring-fence for our impacted members. Internal mobility support will be activated to assist members in exploring redeployment opportunities across other areas of the bank. And displaced members who meet the minimum benchmarking criteria will be guaranteed an interview for any available vacancies. Additionally, all eligible redeployment protections will be provided. Internal mobility resources, included a dedicated colleague site, will be ready accessible for our members. And also, in addition, following the individual consultation period, right management services, which are an outplacement support service, will be made available to our members, which will help for the likes of CV writing, interview techniques for potential redeployment or any jobs that they go for outside of the bank.
Thank you, Gordon. Fiona, listening to what Gordon said there, do you believe there's any other options that might be available for our impacted members?
So actually at the moment what we're doing is we're preparing a comms to be sent out to our members as well. I know that Advance, the other trade union, are doing the same, and what we're going to do is basically look at, is there opportunities for job swaps? So is there neighbouring branches that are close to you that there's somebody that's actually looking to take basically a redundancy, whereas you actually want to stay and you want to stay in employment with the branch? So this is where what we're going to do is send out a comms to all of our members to see, is there anybody interested in either or, to see then, is it a potential for an actual job swap? It basically is within the redundancy policy, the bank's redeployment policy, and this is where we're trying to see if we can help in that process to assist, to make you aware of that, where somebody is looking for that potential swap, and we will get that sent out in the coming days, because we want to try and maximise the redeployment opportunities where somebody does want to stay employed with Santander UK.
Cheers, Fiona. Gordon, there were some members who are on secondment in other roles. How does this impact them?
So, Chris, if we have any members that are currently on secondment, they would return to their substantive role. However, we are conscious that some of those substantive roles could also be impacted by these proposals. And if they are, our members will be subject to the same process that we've detailed earlier in the podcast.
Thanks, Gordon. I think that sort of clarity is useful for people, because I think people will be really uncertain at this moment. I think what yourself and Fiona have been able to do very effectively today is bring a lot of certainty to the process. So, Fiona, last couple of questions, if I can, to you. People will have listened to the podcast. I'm sure they've got a lot of it from both yourself and Gordon. But if they have any more, they need any more information, or they have questions, where do they go and how do they find out the answers?
Please contact your local rep. There's the Algus National branch, and even Gordon Johnston, who's on this call here as well today on this podcast. Gordon is the branch secretary as well for the Algus National branch. And this is where then it's really important that we are here to support you. As Gordon mentioned earlier on, we do strongly oppose the closure of the Santander UK branches. And this is where, if you have any questions, queries, please do get in contact with us. And even if you've got those alternative solutions, that we can help assist you in that as well, and that we can put some of those as well across over to the bank.
Thanks, Fiona. Straight back to you, if I can, with one final question, which is, what are the next steps for the union? What yourself, Gordon, how are we getting involved, negotiations with a company, and then what do the coming weeks look like for us as a union?
This is where we're trying to do this podcast to get us the key information out to yourselves. If again, that's where the last question comes into it, that if there is the additional question, especially if there's circumstances specific to you, please do reach out. We want to gather as much member feedback as possible, so especially on the alternative solutions and specific to your branches and that, please do feed that in. We have been visiting a few branches across the UK. We have held a members meeting. If we need to hold more members meeting, we will do that. We're trying to do everything we possibly can to minimize the job losses. We want the staff to be given retraining, reskilling and redeployment opportunities where this is possible, and we've made that really clear to the bank. We even spoke to Kerry last week to see is there any possible roles in the contact centres, see whether is it possible that roles could be offered to say that from working from home, or even that there's 2 days in the office, so that if the contact centre is within that distance to yourselves. There are very limited opportunities there, but at least with the opportunities that are there, then is this a possibility? We want to look at even positioning to the company that, is there even external companies that Santander can work with that could offer you roles, because they're looking for the skills that you have got? So at least then you know that, right, okay, there might not be any more alternatives for me, but at least I know I've got a job that I can go to because they're looking for the skills that you have. Is that even another possibility within this? We do have another meeting that we've got scheduled with the business now in April as well. We're meeting them face to face as well to go through all the feedback that we've got from our members, from yourselves, and to bring that to the company. So it is really, really important that we hear from you and that we can make those representations to the company to see, right, what is it that we can do to work through some of this.
Right. Thank you, Fiona. I think, again, tons of good info there. So thank you to you, Fiona. Thank you to you yourself as well, Gordon. I think it's been really interesting. Loads and loads of good information and background shared. Obviously, even more than Fiona and Gordon, thank you to all the members who have tuned in to watch the podcast or listen to the podcast. We really do appreciate it. We understand how uncertain this moment is, but I hope you've got lots of reassurance from both Gordon and Fiona that the union really is doing everything it possibly can to make the best of a very difficult situation. And again, as Fiona and Gordon have said today, we'll be communicating more and more with you in the coming days and weeks. So thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you all soon.